Now, again, you'll have a remediation on this quiz next Wednesday. And so Wednesday, what day is that? What day is next Wednesday? Somebody help me out. The 26th? 25th, okay. So Wednesday, 25th, we'll have remediation for the quiz. And it will not, then you'll have a retake on the, I think next Thursday, though, is homecoming, isn't it? The pep rally. Do we have class is the question. Probably short. Yeah, so we'll do it in class. Retake in class. All right, so we'll do a retake in class if you want it. If you don't want the retake, there'll be an alternative assignment. No big deal. Okay? We're all good with that? On the 26th, I'm sorry. All right. Now, when you're looking at, so let's move on. Let's talk about a couple problems people had. First of all, I warned you that when you think of freezing, the word freezing, I knew it was going to happen. I was not surprised at all at the results, because I say something, and sometimes when a teacher says something to you, writes it down, and asks you to say it back, and you say it back, it somehow doesn't sink deeply into your mind, especially stuff that you're already used to. So one of the things that, when you have a misconception, when you have an idea that's wrong, sometimes these misconceptions, that's not that you don't know. Misconception does not mean you don't know. That means you know something it's just wrong. Okay? I mean, you know it and it's wrong. Unteaching it, is very hard. We call that fossilization. So once you get an idea in your head, it's hard to unteach it. So one of the things that I knew you had in your head is that 0 degrees Celsius is freezing. I knew that was in your head because, well, I've been teaching a long time, and I also live in this same world you do, and everybody says it's freezing, it's below freezing, they mean it's below a zero, right? They say it's above freezing, they mean it's above zero, or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Right? Negative 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Correct? Yeah. That's what they always say. That's what you hear in the Weather Channel. That's what you see on the news. That's what everybody tells you. And what they're always talking about freezing, they're talking about freezing of water. Every substance has its own freezing point. Every substance has its own melting point. So you can't, freezing does not mean 0 degrees. Freezing is, the temperature is 0 degrees is when water freezes. Water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius, but alcohol freezes at a lower temperature. You can put alcohol in your freezer, it won't freeze, it won't turn solid. But water will. So freezing is different for every temperature. You have to know that. So what was the one answer people chose incorrectly on that list of data? They would just naturally, just because of all the years you've lived on planet Earth and learned that 0 degrees is freezing, naturally you gravitated towards 0 degrees, correct? That's what most people got it wrong, chose 0. I gave you what? What did I give you? What did I tell you? I didn't tell you the freezing point. What did I tell you?
Melting point.
The melting point. If I tell you the melting point is at 5 degrees Celsius, what's the freezing point? If the melting point is 5 degrees Celsius, what's the freezing point? 5 degrees Celsius. The melting point and freezing point are the same. I said that in class. I posted the notes. So it all depends. Melting, if it's melting, it's increasing in temperature. It's increasing in temperature. If it's freezing, it's decreasing in temperature. I mean, it's important that you get that. You had open notes, guys. Did you have that written down? You had it written down in your notes? What part of that was confusing to you? If you had it written down, you got the question wrong, please feel free. No, very few people had this perfectly done. So we've all made mistakes. So now let's... let's not... Yes, the questions are going to be tricky. That's the way questions are. Okay? They're going to be tricky. The way you word the question is going to be I need to prepare you to take the test that you're going to take, not take the test we wish we could take. Does that make sense? I wish it didn't need to be tricky. It's not really tricky. It's just big words. I use big words, right? And it makes you have to think, and that's what they're going to do to you on the OST. That's what you're going to see on the SAT, ACT. That's what you're going to see on the AP exams. You have to see the questions the way they are going to be presented to you, not the way you and I both wish we could. I wish we didn't have to do tests at all. We could just do oral exams and just you show me by building or doing something, but that's not the way it is, okay? But yes, I'm not arguing with you that it's not tricky. It's not a straightforward question. I warned you it wasn't going to be straightforward. You had to know, to answer the question, your key piece of information, the thing that you needed to know beyond any reasonable doubt is this. Freezing point and melting point's the same. If you got that wrong, it's probably because you forgot or didn't understand this. Also, that freezing point and melting point is different for every substance. Okay. Now there's another question that I saw of the people that came up here that these people got wrong, and that was what was it? Somebody help me out. One they got wrong that they were confused about. It's only 4 questions. But you know which one.
Please pardon this interruption. This is just a notice that the John Hay Fathers Walk is now ending and students will be returning to class. Fathers, thank you so much for coming out this morning. Safe travel.
So, aren't the fathers... Okay, I was confused. Why would that... Okay, so anyways, I think one of the questions was, what did... let's see if... Yeah, there was a long sentence that said, a couple sentences. Yeah, well, for some, the order was changed. Right. So I think it said something like, and I'm not going to phrase it exactly, but it said something like, look, scientists or people have been trying to discover, to understand our world, right? And I said, even to the point where people are trying to make lead into gold. I said, there were a lot of problems with what they were doing. There were a lot of issues. They had misconceptions. They had false ideas. Not necessarily bad. It's just they had ideas, and their ideas ended up being wrong, right? Because that's the nature of ideas. Sometimes we're wrong, and we have to admit it, because otherwise we're stuck and we keep getting the wrong answer. So then I said, what was it that we learned, or what was it that we did get from all the work that they were able to do? And I believe one of the answers, I even misspelled magic on purpose, but one of the answers was magic. Like magic, I put J, but magic was what we learned was true about the world. Why would you choose magic? Huh? Some people chose magic. More than one person. I talked about magic, yes. I said people thought magic existed. I said that. But that wasn't the point of the conversation. The point was that was one of the things they got wrong. At least as far as we know. Then I mentioned the other one that I was almost sure that a lot of people were going to choose, and a lot of people did, was that the elements were fire, air, earth, and chi. And people chose that. I knew you were going to choose that. That was a distractor. I knew you were going to choose it. As soon as I put it, I'm like, half the kids, because we talked about it. We talked about magic too, but I didn't think people would choose magic, because it says, what did the world gain? What ideas worked from all the work that they got put together, right? Are the elements of life fire, earth, air, and chi? No. So that was not the right answer. But people were going to choose it because we did talk about it. See, that's the difference between understanding your notes and just writing it down. This is what Cornell Notes is all about. You can have an open notebook, but it won't help you unless you understand what you're writing, which means you have to process them. And then the right answer was that we could separate substances to make pure materials. All right? So there's some serious, this is again about what did we get from the lesson. I repeated that message before we left, and then we said it again on Wednesday. So if you're not understanding, if you want to write down, remember the whole idea of summarizing that day's notes. If you're sitting there and you're like, at the end you're like, we talked about a lot, raise your hand and say, what are the key points you want us to get out of all this, Mr. Mendoza? And then let's write it down. Let's write down those key points. All air, earth, fire, I was just telling you background on where people were, things that went wrong, not good things. So we have to communicate. Does that make sense? An element is the purest form. The purest form of a material it cannot be broken down. You missed a quiz here. Cannot. Where? Oh wait, were you taking the quiz? Where are you coming from? Oh, to school. Okay. I just have several passes here. I wasn't sure which pass was it that you laid down. The purest form of material, it can no longer be broken down. Let's just use the word separated. Without it losing its properties. So if I have element, let's call it A, there is no element A, so I'm just going to call it A. It's going to have a mass. We call it molecular mass. Or let's not even call it molecular mass. It's a mass, atomic mass. Atomic mass. It's going to have a consistent density. So it's density. It's going to have whether it's oxidative state. Does it rust or not? Does it rust? Does it react? Its reactivity. So as these qualities, and A is the purest form where these qualities exist. These qualities are going to be different for every material. Are we all okay with that so far? All right, so no. So tell me, what is confusing? Tell me what is not clear to you. What about A?
What is A?
It's a variable. So it could be anything. A is the purest form of something. It's an element, it's an example element. And that element, if you have an element, any element, it has a specific mass, density, oxidative state, reactivity. Those properties, this is the purest form. If I broke it down any more, those would change. Does that make sense? It's the pure. So if gold, this is the purest form that I could have. I'd still call it gold. If I broke it down any more, it wouldn't be gold anymore. Does that make sense to you? It's the purest form. We call it elements. Those are the elements. There weren't 5 the way their ancestors thought. 5 or 6, depending on where you came from. But there are actually at least 118 elements. This is a periodic table of what? Elements. You'll get a copy of this. We in biology are going to be worried about these elements here. We're going to be worried about these 4 periods, the first 4 periods of the periodic table. We're not going to be worried about uranium, plutonium, silver or gold. How many people here have gold bones? We have 2 minutes left in class. How many people here have uranium for a brain? These elements do not, the elements underneath these 4 first rows, there are some of them are involved in life processes, but very rarely and a very small amount. Of these elements, first 4 rows already made your life easier, right? So you only have to worry about the first 4 rows. Really, what we're going to focus on our studies on for this year. Next year you'll talk about all of them, but this year we're going to focus on just mostly the second row. Mostly the second row of the periodic table. And specifically, I would write it down. Right now I would have already written that down. I would put in second row, periodic table. But you didn't write it down, Mr. Mendoza. No, I didn't. Jimmy, I didn't write it down. But I said it. I repeated it. Second row of the periodic table is going to be important. That's one. And then the second thing that I haven't said yet, that I'm going to write down, is that the elements of life are, and you need to know this, schnapps. That's carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. There are other elements that do become important for life, but these are the big ones that you're going to see a lot of this year and next year and the year after. So these are the ones we're going to focus on that you need to know. I'm telling you right now, I can't say it any clearer. If someone can think of a more clear way of me saying this, please let me know. You must know these. They will be tested. And probably next week. Again, there'll be a makeup on Thursday. Watch your videos. If you haven't watched them, go back over your notes. That's a homework assignment that I'm not grading. It will be graded on your next quiz, though. So again, just to go over this with you, if it says a scientist looking for time, when you're given information, what you guys need to do, just so that you you increase your ability to unpack, right? You want to unpack. This is a sentence. It's 2 sentences, correct? Very long. There's a lot of information in this. So you got to unpack it. So the scientist was looking for the time. So it says time. So the question that I'm answering is the answer I'm looking for has to do with time. Okay? So now I know that. You write it down. You always ask yourself, what are they asking me? They're asking me about time. All right. The next, after you write down the question, and this is some of you might have gotten this right and you think it's easy, that's fine, but still go through this process because some of the questions are actually going to be hard. So the next thing you do after you know what they're asking, so you ask yourself, give me a second. Can I move this? Yeah. Ask yourself, what are they asking me? What is the question? They're asking me for time. They want to know the time. All right, the time of what? Well, let's find out. It would take to reach the melting point of a substance. All right, so I can add to my understanding what the question is. It's the time to reach the melting point. So there it is. There's my question. Now I know what I'm being asked. Then it says, of a substance whose freezing point is 15 degrees. So the next thing you got to know, so they're done with the question. I know what they're asking me. Now I got to write down, what do I know? And what do I know? That answer comes with two parts. What am I given? I'm given some information in the problem. So what's the information I'm giving? Is the freezing point is 15 degrees Celsius. So I'm given that. They told me that. And I could highlight it if I want. So I'm looking for time, and they gave me freezing point. Now I took that complicated sentence and I broke it down into simple little pieces that I can now understand and more easily address. Does that make sense to you? It makes your life easier if you break it down this way. Now again, maybe you didn't need to do this for this question because you felt it was easy. Okay, but you need to do this all the time so that you can, when you get a hard question, it doesn't overwhelm you. You have to break things down, what we call unpacking. But that's not all you know. This is what you've been given. So I also know, I've been taught, or I know, right, that freezing point equals melting point. Now, I might have been confused when I was just reading it, right? But now I wrote it down and I say, look, they told me the freezing point is 15, and I know that freezing point equals melting point. So I know this is going to melt at 15 degrees. It's right in front of me, right? It makes it harder for you to make a mistake. Does that make sense? So really break it down. So, okay, so now I know that much. So I know 15. And what else do they give me? They've given me a table. With time and temperature. So what's my strategy? What strategy how am I going to solve this? Find 15 degrees Celsius, about 15 degrees Celsius, at least. Let me write differently because it's not going to melt at 14. So it has to be find at least 15 degrees Celsius on the table. Yeah. A table, yeah, sorry. I'm writing quickly here. Are we good? So a table with data with time and temperature. They also give me that. So my strategy, the way I'm going to solve this problem is I'm going to take and I'm going to find at least 15 degrees on the table, and that'll give me the time. Let me go up and look at it. I'm looking at the table. I'm looking at temperature in minutes. So I find at least 15 degrees. There's 13. That's no good. Here's 15. And I come across, and the time is what? 11. Now, some people made a mistake, and they made sure they thought it was 10 because they couldn't see it go straight across. You can always use a piece of paper on the screen. You know what I'm saying? You can use a ruler if you have a ruler. I should have put lines in. I forgot to. I apologize. But that's it, right? that's how you solve a problem like this. Ooh, so this all jacked up. I don't know how that. Oh, that's why. So that's how you solve that problem. That seemed easy enough. You're wasting time, girls. I'm finding it. You're wasting it. All right, I'll do it with the other class and post it. So we look at this problem. We got to identify what's going on. First, what do we do first when we're trying to solve a problem? What's the first step? Somebody that remembers what we just did, who was paying attention. What are they asking me? First question is, what are they asking me? And this is the hardest part right now. This is the hardest part to this question. What are they asking me? So I got to break down the question. So let's read it. So I read it slowly, and I break this up, and then I translate this into my own thinking. I simplify. And that's what Cornell Notes is asking you to do every day. Reduce, reduce, reduce. By reducing it to the main ideas and doing it every day, you are practicing what you need to do in life. You're given information. Okay, let's simplify this. What is the core of the issue? All right. The quest for understanding our world and even to make lead into gold started long ago. All right, so let me start with that. So this part of this sentence, I know, because I remember my notes, I know that this had to do with what, by the way? Can somebody else answer? This had to do with alchemy. Alchemists. All right? So this is alchemists. There's just history. I remember that. Mr. Mendoza was talking about it. We talked about it. He gave all kinds of examples. And I remember specifically lead into gold. All right, so he's just talking. That was just another way of saying alchemist. Okay. Got involved a great deal with a misunderstanding and assumptions that turned out to be wrong. Oh, gosh, what could he be talking about there? Gosh. Ooh. What was it that we talked about that turned out to be wrong? That's right. So in this I should have used a different color. Sorry about that. I'll just use blue. So this part was all about the idea of oh my goodness. Why is this not getting thinner? The idea of magic. And remember I told you a story of people thinking that fever was having too much fire of the 5 elements and they were bled to death. So bleeding, the process of bleeding people in the old days. And that was done because they were wrong in their thinking of how the world worked. That was the example. Now, I'm telling you that if I looked at your notes right now, I would guess, I based on when I looked at other kids' notes, I'm telling you, I would almost guarantee that the people that got this wrong on a test did not write down, first of all, probably didn't write down the story about the bleeding people or the stories about magic and why that was wrong. Or they wrote it down but didn't write down that it was wrong. Correct? If you look at your notes, I bet you didn't either you didn't write it down or you didn't write down that it was wrong. Either way, oh well, I'll have to. So one process that came out of, ladies, please separate. One of the processes that came out of this focus study was useful in advancing humankind. Wait, there's a key word. Was useful. What was useful about all this? It wasn't magic. It wasn't bleeding. What did we talk about? About advancing our understanding. Advancing, is that a negative or is that a positive? So all this is, so I can take, even though I might not know exactly what this guy meant when he wrote this, I can think that this is what positive stuff came out of all this history, right? Is that simple enough? Right? What was the positive stuff that came out of all this history? All right, so let's go ahead. I literally did this on purpose, so I corrected it here. Magic, I misspelled on purpose, hoping that you would not choose it. And yet a lot of people chose magic.
Are you sure you just didn't genuinely misspell it?
Do I ever deny misspelling things? Have you ever known me? Have I ever denied misspelling anything?
I don't know, I think you're trying to play it off.
I think Woo's coming for me.
I'm not.
I don't lie about stuff like this. I have no pride about it. You know what? One of the reasons I really don't mind misspelling things, you want to know why? Because I read your essays. You'll have essays to do. I just gave essays to seniors. When you read essays over and over again, you really don't mind making a mistake because you see all the mistakes that children make and you feel better about yourself. No, he's coming for me, and I'm saying that I'm not embarrassed about making mistakes because I'm human and I know I make mistakes. Unfortunately, so many of you think you're perfect and you don't, but you do make mistakes, and it's okay. I don't laugh at you, but I don't feel bad about myself because I know you make mistakes too, and I see how bad they are, and I'm like, I don't feel so bad. So I don't really feel, when I say I did it on purpose, I mean I did it on purpose. So, no. I already told you I made other mistakes in the test, but that was on purpose. So the question is that magic works. The fact that people chose magic works as being something positive that came out of all this history of alchemy and all that, I question what's going on. And if you didn't rush, raise your hand. It's okay that you did it. Who chose this? I know who chose it. I have the record of it. But anyways, if you chose this, you have to ask yourself, why did I choose this? What did you choose, Woo?
I chose the 5 elements.
Okay.
I chose the second.
Oh, good. I'm glad you chose the second one. So it says the magic works. I would hope that people wouldn't choose that. But this is the question that comes into my mind. Why would anyone choose this answer that I thought I made very clear was wrong? One, I purposely misspelled it. And two, I was like, it's magic, it works. Who would say magic works? So, in any case, I hope that you see now why that. Now, why would they choose that? I'm going to tell you why they chose that. Because there's open notes. And they took notes, and one of the things they wrote down was what? They used magic. Alchemists used magic. That's what they wrote down. And they went on their notes and they found it. They did a word find, right? Like you used to, like kids do when people that don't like crossword puzzles, they do word finds. You ever see those puzzles with word finds where you have a bunch of letters and you're trying to find the words in the letter? Well, that's what they did. They saw this in their notes. Alchemists did magic. They didn't even think about the question. They didn't break down the question. They didn't understand what they were being asked. They probably didn't even understand the question. They just found alchemists did magic and they chose that answer. It was the first answer that matched their notes and they chose it. I think that's what's going on. I don't think anyone in this room really believes that magic works. Maybe someone does, I don't know, but I don't think so. Then the 5 elements of our world were fire, earth, water, air, and chi. Again, what was this? This was right out of the notes. Why would someone as smart as Wu, as smart as any of you, I just mentioned Wu because he admitted to choosing it. Why would anyone agree that of all the things that came out of that history, the most positive stuff that came out of it was the 5 elements of our world are fire, earth, water, and air, and chi.
Because they didn't specify correctly in the notes.
Yeah, you didn't write down this was wrong. I mean, one would think that it's common sense that these are not the 5 elements of our world. But I find that common sense is not common. It's not. It's very rare. True common sense. And I also gave this example in class, although nobody really chose this one. Rags left in the corner. So I knew when I wrote the test that this was going to be the one that people really this was what's called a distractor. I really felt that people that didn't understand would definitely choose this one. People that didn't write. I knew it. I phrased it exactly the way I did in the notes on purpose. So the actual answer is obviously, at least I hope it's obvious, it was possible to purify materials by separating them. So you can see by this breakdown how many steps you really had to do to answer this question correctly.
Yeah.
And certainly you had to have notes that were well organized. You cannot get away with just writing stuff down. If you just wrote stuff down, then you would not know the difference between C. You hopefully would see this one was wrong, but okay, maybe A or C or even B. You wouldn't be able to make a choice. If you just, even with your open notes, you wouldn't be able to make a choice because of these 3 were all in your notes. So was this one. So I guess you wouldn't be able to make a choice of any of them. This is not, quizzes and tests in high school and college are not word finds. You must identify what they're asking you. What do you know? What have you been given? A strategy on how to solve it, and then choose the best answer. That has to be your process all the time, or you will cost yourself. All right.